Welcome to the NFL MVP Momentum Podcast. I'm Sam Holcroft alongside Payton Thompson and Sean Rink. Before we begin, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP, follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. So, guys, we are through 6 weeks of the regular season, and hate to burst your bubble, but we are already a third of the way through the regular season. But I do have some good news. Standings are looking good. Well, for you three. Zeke is at the top of the standings with 74 points with a 62 and 31 record. He got out of the 15 matchups last week. He went 10 and 5, got his upset correct, but not the double down. The Eagles finally losing, so he doesn't get those free 2 points. Sean is at 73 points with a 63 and 30 record. Sean having the best week, going 12 and 3, and the only person with the upset and double down correct last week.
Yes, sir.
PT, you were in third place with 71 points, also a 63 and 30 record. And you had, I think, a 9 and 6 record. And you got neither your upset nor double down correct. And then I'm at the bottom with a 57 and 36 record, 68 points. And I went, I think that's 10 and 5. And only got my double down last week. So Zeke's still at the top of the standings, but Sean, you had a big week, climbing through. So we'll see if you can maintain.
We're getting there. I just got to double down on the Dolphins every week. That's all I got to do.
I guess.
Got to be a homer.
So we're going to go ahead and go into our overreaction Mondays. I'll go ahead and start off with Zeke's. So Zeke's overreaction Monday is the Lions are the third best team in the NFL. So right now, the AFC is not looking all too hot. Bengals, kind of spotty. Chiefs, I mean, they've looked good other than, that week 1 loss to the Lions, hence the Lions. But I think still the 49ers and Eagles are still ahead of the Lions. But, I mean, they've beaten everyone else in their path. Now, credit, no one is above 500 except for the Buccaneers in that and the Chiefs. But they're still looking really good, and their defense is playing some stout defense, even though they have a lot of injuries on that offense and defense.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said for the most part. I mean, like you said, I think the other two NFC teams are ahead, but as far as the AFC, the only team I'd confidently put ahead is is the Dolphins. So yeah, I would say that's pretty on base, maybe fourth or fifth best.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the argument for it. I would say that it falls into an overreaction category. I mean, I think the Lions are, they're winning the games that they got put on their schedule, but I still think that I want to see them against some, more consistent, higher end talent or talented teams to see who they really are.
Yeah, true. So, Sean, what's your overreaction for the week?
Well, PT's going to love this one, but, I think Desmond Ridder might not be the solution, Maybe it's time to bench him and bring in Heineke or go get somebody else. I think you got rid of Marcus Mariota and, thought Desmond Ridder was the option, and it seems like you just got Marcus Mariota V2 but younger. So I think, it's not the solution. Maybe you look at trading him, benching him. I don't know. But he's obviously not the answer right now. And I think you could see that on the Falcons coach's face after the picks and then the post-game press conference. But the guy also does wear his emotions on his sleeve. So that's, take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, that's a on base reaction. I would say that's a perfect reaction to Sunday.
Yeah, with Desmond Ridder, it's just real tough because, last week he was the star. He's the reason they beat the Texans. The first ever 300-yard passing game, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And last week also had 300 yards, but had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Maybe a third.
Two touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But, I think you also got to put some of that blame on Arthur Smith and his play calling. Some of those fourth down goes were a little bit questionable at times, and just could never get moving after putting yourself behind. All right, so PT, your overreaction for the week?
Yeah, I think this is something that people have been thinking about for a while before the season even started. Kind of going back to the playoffs last year and kind of the trend of the Bills in general. I just don't think the Bills are the same team that we used to think they were, or they used to be in general. So, but I mean, I think it really starts with just the vanilla offense that's been on the field these last couple weeks. I think, when the Bills are relatively new, especially their second, third year with Josh Allen really under center, I think they were mixing things up a bit better. I think they're a little bit more unpredictable. Even with, you could debate less talent at the running back position. Obviously, now they still have Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, um, who's their second receiver. I'm forgetting. Just got a contract.
Gabe Davis.
Gabe Davis, yeah. So, I think the talent is there, and I think the Bills can turn it around, but as of right now, they just don't look like the same team that they should have been going into the season, and that I think it's really carrying over from the playoffs last year, that big disappointment.
I could agree with that outside of week 4 when they looked like the Bills of old against the Dolphins, but that's just, a little soft spot. But I think you're spot on. Like, I don't think they look the same as they did, and the Bills-Giants game on, Monday night kind of proved that was pretty pitiful, or Sunday night, excuse me, but that was pretty pitiful. I don't even know what to expect there.
Yeah, the Bills have been so wishy-washy. They looked horrible against the Jets, having 4 turnovers, and then they blew out the Raiders, blew out the Commanders, blew out the Dolphins, lose to the Jaguars, and then almost lose to the Giants. It's like just totally wishy-washy. But and especially in a division where the Dolphins played their worst game of the season. I don't think they're going to have another bad game like that for the rest of the season. So if you want to win that division and not have to play on the road, then you're going to have to, be a better team and be the team that we used to know.
And I truthfully think that the Bills are thankful and, thanking God every single day the fact that Aaron Rodgers went out, game or play 4, even though they lost that game to them. But if Aaron Rodgers was still there, I think the Bills might be third best team in that division.
Yeah, considering that. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're good. Go.
Considering the Jets are 3-3 right now, and like, could they have won a few extra games? They could maybe be 5-1. You could even say. So
right, I think if you have a better quarterback, better decision making, I think you beat the Patriots. You're 4-2. You honestly have a chance. I mean, don't get me wrong, he played well, but like maybe you get over that hump and you beat the Chiefs. You could be 5-1, sitting on the top tied with the Dolphins.
Yep. So, my overreaction for the week: the Eagles need to figure out whether or not they want to compete in January, because right now it doesn't look like that they want to. Super Bowl hangover is real. PT, you've been calling it all season for an Eagles regression. The Patriots so far this year, 1-5. They beat them by 5 points. The Vikings are 2-4. They beat them by 6 points. The Buccaneers, which is their best win so far this season, Buccaneers are 3-2. They beat them by 14. The Commanders are a 3-3 team, probably the weirdest 3-3 team that we have, probably alongside with the Raiders. They beat them by 3 in overtime. Rams also 3-3. They only beat them by 9, and then they lost to the Jets, who is a 3-3 team that has a backup quarterback playing. This offense needs to figure out what they're doing, and I don't know. Like this right now, other than the tush push, like there is no play call that you can go to that you can rely on every single game, because this offense will have a great drive and then the next one 3 and out for like the next 2 or 3 drives.
Yeah, like you said, man, I've been calling it for a long time now. So it's not really a surprise to me. I think teams are just kind of figuring out what they want to do on offense and being able to limit that. So, I think you're on point, and I was right for now.
I like when PT's right.
All right, so now we'll move on to our next topic, which is going to be teams that should make a trade at the trade deadline. So we're about 2 weeks away from the trade deadline, and we're each going to bring up a team and what they should be targeting for a trade, and then we kind of have some potential options. So, PT, I believe you are first.
Yeah, Sean kind of scratched the surface for this one a little bit with Desmond Ritter possibly being benched. Probably should be benched. Oh, never mind. We're starting with the Cowboys. Falcons we'll touch on later. So, with the Cowboys, I think that for the most part, when their offense and defense are clicking, they're a very hard team to beat. But I think the biggest thing that they're losing from last year is that tight end threat to come over the top and help Dak out. I think Dak really liked Dalton Schultz last year. Obviously, they tried to get Jake Ferguson kind of going this year. He's had his good games and his games where he doesn't really get the most targets and utilization. So I think that if you brought in a little bit more of an experienced tight end, I think it would really pay dividends for this offense just to move the chains. All it takes is two or three different series, and you're in red zone and you can at least kick a field goal or possibly score a touchdown. So, I think it's kind of weird a little bit to mention that the Cowboys need more offensive firepower because if you look at this team, I wouldn't say they're one of the more higher powered offenses, but I think that they're not one of the lower either. I think they're about right for where they should be. But yeah, I think they're just missing that tight end that's going to be able to bail them out in tough situations. So a couple targets I would have for them: Zach Ertz, David Njoku, and Cole Kmet. I think all three of those guys are pretty dependable for the most part. Mainly the first two, mainly Zach Ertz. And I think Zach Ertz also would look and be very comfortable in this kind of vertical, outside run, deep shot scheme because he's very athletic. He's been healthy for this past couple weeks. So I think, him just staying in Arizona, I don't think is really doing him any favors, especially because they're not really going to go anywhere. So, yeah, I definitely think it's a guy that could get traded, and I think it'd be a good target. And talk about David Njoku a little bit. I think for the most part in his career, when you give him a good quarterback and a good scheme, I think he can be utilized well. I think he's just kind of missed out on those opportunities sometimes, being with the Browns, especially not really being able to utilize him there in that power run scheme. But both these guys are top tier veteran tight ends. They might not be the most talented, but they're going to know what they're doing on the field. So I think that's important for the Cowboys.
No, and I think you hit that pretty well. Like I think, you have CD Lamb that, he can't do it all. Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, one of them has to step up. But at the same time, if you put in any one of those three tight ends or any, more veteran tight end or somebody that could, be more of a difference maker in that position, that Cowboys offense could get scary quick. You start being able to spread the ball out more, that vertical offense, gets really scary, and then you have Tony Pollard who can come out of that backfield, catch a pass, and he's 20 yards downfield before you know it.
Yeah, I think Dalton Schultz is, and I think you said this either last week or 2 weeks ago, PT, but Dalton Schultz was a big factor of that Cowboys offense, and not only losing him, but losing Zeke, even though he was a minor part of that offense. I mean, it's just like this is not the same Cowboys offense that we have seen, the last 2 or 3 years. So Sean, who's your team you want to bring up?
Oh, we're gonna stay kind of on topic here with the tight end. I'm gonna bring up my Dolphins here. I'm gonna be a little homer here with this one, but I think they're in the same position. I think they're in need of a tight end. They got rid of Gasecki last year, who proved to be a big help in the tight end position, but it just seems like they're lackluster. This season, I think that they would benefit greatly, just like the Cowboys would, from a veteran tight end or a big physical guy who would be able to stretch the field. And I mean, they have all those weapons, with Tyreek, excuse me, and then Jalen, and honestly, Barrios and Chosen are really helping helping out that offense. But you get a tight end that's in there, they can get upfield, they can be a blocking tight end, or they can go up, and snag a ball if they need to. I mean, it can only help them. Getting a tight end can't hurt them. And it seems like they're kind of all in on this season and think that they have a real shot to do this. So it wouldn't surprise me if they go out and get a tight end. I think Ertz, Pitts, or we heard the Gronk rumors. I mean, the dude loves to come back and find a way to win a championship. So by all means, I'm all for it. But I think that you could see them being a player on trying to get a tight end here.
Yeah, and I like the idea of this is like, I mean, what's the most capital that you have to give up for Ertz, Pitts, or Gronk? Maybe a third round pick. Like, and that's
Right.
if they want. That's if they want to be greedy.
Right.
I mean, if you sign,
you also just went and got man, I just forgot his name. Who'd they just trade for? The wide receiver. Oh man.
Claypool.
Yeah, I mean you have receivers in hand. Like if you really wanted to, you could throw in a receiver and you're not losing a lot. Like I don't think you really want to get rid of Barrios or Chosen, but like if you really had to go get a tight end that you think is going to get you over the edge, you have enough receiving core that you could be, all right, this is fine, and you're not going to lose them. I think Barrios is that that receiver number 3, and I think Tua is starting to love working with him. That maybe he's off limits, but I think you still have enough firepower there that you could find a way to make a trade intriguing for a team.
Yeah, I think, well, for the record, I don't think Pitts is going for a third round pick. I think he would probably be like a second, a third, and maybe a future fourth or something. But if they could get Pitts in that offense, that would be the best option. But as far as, and I kind of wanted to hit that value of like, what exactly would it take? If it wouldn't take that much, then I would do it. But I wouldn't be so hasty to do it that I would be willing to give up anything, because I feel like this Dolphins offense is so high powered already that, I mean, they don't really need to make the trade, but it does take them from probably the best offense in the NFL to undoubtedly the best offense in the NFL. Definitely already the best probably in the AFC, but it just makes them all that much more of a superpower, and you need that in the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, I think if the value is right, it's a good choice.
And I think you're spot on. When you bring up the value for Pitts, I think he's a long shot, 100%. The kid's too young and too good. I don't think that he's necessarily the front runner. I would assume Ertz is just that veteran. He's not going to cost a whole lot, like you said. So I think that's more what you look into. But a boy has to dream.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So the first thing that I want to bring up is the Baltimore Ravens. And, Bengals might be potentially down and out. If they can beat them a few times, then they could potentially win that division. But what is that offense missing? And that's a running back. And no, not the one that's playing quarterback, an actual running back. Sorry, I always have to give my little Lamar dig in there. So I think that, with another season of J.K. Dobbins going down, it's to the point where the Baltimore just might need to give up on him. And Justice Hill and Gus Edwards has proven they are not the answer. In a team where the Steelers' rush offense has not been the best, rush defense has not been the best, and they only put up 10 points, and I think 150 yards, but I think more than half of that was Lamar, if I remember right. They need a running back, especially if they're going to be trying to win the division. Some names that I have that they could maybe target: Jonathan Taylor. I know he just signed that extension. Maybe probably going to just stay with the Colts, but if they wanted to give up some capital, because if they think that they're in a win now situation, because the AFC, it's still the Chiefs and probably Dolphins up top. But other than that, you can fight for any other position, 3rd through 7th. So if you want to give up capital for Taylor, you could do that. Josh Jacobs could be on the down and out, especially if the Raiders are going to be selling at the trade deadline. And I know he just signed with the Patriots, but Zeke said he wanted to compete, and I think he signed with the wrong team if he wanted to compete. And I feel like that he could very much fit in that Baltimore style and that Baltimore offense.
Here is my only issue with it. I think that if they were to make a halfback trade, which I think they should do, I think the position's on point. The problem that I have with it is the money part of it. I don't think they'd be willing to give the quarterback and the running back position, you know, a combined however million it's going to take to get that deal done. Um, I would look to guys that are a little bit either on the cheaper rookie contract deal. So I think a guy like Zach Moss would be interesting, kind of the other running back in Indianapolis, because he hasn't been paid yet. And they already know that they got Jonathan Taylor locked up. And then also a guy that's on the older side that may cost you a lot, but at least his contract isn't going to be super long, and he may not cost as much because of the team's position. I think that's Derrick Henry. I think either side of those I think makes a little bit more sense than some of these guys that have just gotten paid that are either looking to stay with their team long term, or the money just doesn't really make sense. So otherwise, though, I think it's a good idea.
And I think VT is 100% spot on with the money aspect. I think going out and getting somebody that has so much, salary cap associated with them is going to be a tough sell for that front office. I mean, you also look at their running back room. I mean, they still have J.K. Dobbins. They had the money invested in Gus Edwards. Not a lot, but I mean, he's been around for so many years. Like, they have running backs there, but they can't stay healthy, and they're just sitting here paying guys that are constantly getting on IR and they're going to be out. That I just don't see that you can justify without cleaning house somewhere, going and getting a Taylor or a Josh Jacobs that is going to give you, 1-2 money throughout the NFL.
Yeah, and Taylor's the biggest one with that biggest contract, but Josh Jacobs, it's just a 1 year deal, so you just got to eat the cap for the rest of the year, and same with Zeke. So if you can make the money work, then might as well do it, especially if that's the only thing. Because do you need receivers? I mean, they're all healthy right now, but I think
Can they catch a football though?
That's true. All right, PT.
So yeah, so here is the one that I was mentioning earlier with the Falcons. That kind of touches up on Sean's point a little bit, and that's making a quarterback trade. I think this is probably one of the more common trade suggestions through the NFL community right now, because I think it's just like the writing's on the wall. Like you said, we're saying, Sean, I just don't think Ritter's ready. I don't think that. I don't know if we ever intended him to be the fix, the long term fix. I think it was more so let's see if it can work out, which honestly, in hindsight, is kind of the incorrect approach, being that we spent, 50 million, $60 million on defense, and in a weak division, in a very winnable division. But with that being said, you kind of have to go at it with where we at now, not, what we were looking forward to in the past. And so I think a couple guys that could be in those names are Kirk Cousins, Kyler Murray, and Ryan Tannehill. Um, it's just the only thing with the quarterback trades, especially to Atlanta, is I just don't know how often quarterback trades happen in the middle of the season, and how often they end up working out. Because I feel like for any of these guys to come in and make an immediate impact to start winning games, I think could happen. But is it worth the asset risks that you'd have to trade to get them? I don't know. I think you kind of alluded to just starting Taylor Heineke, Sean, and I think that might be more so the direction we go to, because I don't know if the gap between Ryan Tannehill and Heineke is really that big where we would have to give up multiple picks to get Tannehill. And even that, even saying that, Tannehill isn't some guy that's just going to, sling the ball 30, 40 times. These guys aren't going to be those kind of guys. They're going to be guys that protect the ball, don't turn the ball over. Smarter veteran guys that are at least going to do the right things in clutch moments. So, as a Falcons fan, I'll say this. I don't think Desmond Ritter is ready to take the division this year. I'm I'm a little bit hesitant on giving up multiple picks for a quarterback mid-season when he doesn't have a full offseason to kind of learn the scheme, get rapport with his receivers. So yeah, I'm not sure if it happens or not, but it's definitely an option.
I never had thought of that before, of like really all that complicates being a quarterback going into a new system. You see it all the time with position players and all that. They get traded all the time. But you never really see the quarterback, and nobody ever really thinks why, besides the fact that like teams have so much money invested. But like the logistics behind it, I mean, imagine trying to go into a new job, even our jobs that we do. Like, imagine going and working from Walmart and then immediately going and working from Best Buy and expected to know all the products that are there, all the, warranties that you have, and be able to do that in a week. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And so, like, thinking about switching a quarterback from one system to another, unless it's identical or they have a history with said play caller or whatever, I think it's going to be hard. And I do think that you're, like I said earlier, and what you said with, possibly looking for a quarterback, I think it's correct. However, I don't know if necessarily Tannehill would be a guy that's worth going for. I think Tannehill's on the back end of his career anyways. I don't think he really helps you. If you want me to be honest of who I think that if the Falcons wanted to go towards for potentially a longer term fit, and I don't know if it would be realistic or not, you look at Chicago Bears and Justin Fields. The Bears know that they're in the driver's seat to have first pick and second pick. You can already see kind of the writing on the wall, sitting at 1-5 or whatever they are, looking at going and getting Caleb Williams, which Justin Fields has already mentioned he doesn't really care to be there. So I could see Justin Fields being that guy. The only thing that I think worries about anybody looking at trading for Justin Fields to try to make an immediate impact this season is his injuries that he's had this season that's kind of bugged him.
Sean, that
Yeah.
was music to my ears.
No,
I've been
I
saying
mean,
this all season.
yeah, I mean, Fields was definitely the other guy that I would throw in there. The only thing with Fields, and I do agree with you that he would be the best long-term option for this team. I just feel like they would want a little bit too much than I'd be comfortable giving up. And maybe that changes once the record is finalized and they know for sure they're going to have the number one overall pick. Maybe it goes down from a second rounder to the third. Maybe it becomes that Colts third round or not Colts, Jaguars conditional third round pick we got from Ridley. Maybe it becomes something more like that. And at that point, I'd be willing to do it. But also, like you said, if we're talking about making a trade mid-season like that, I couldn't completely trust Justin Fields to come into this offense and be a super high IQ kind of guy. I mean, I think he'd be a little bit smarter of a decision maker than Ritter, and obviously he's a much more dynamic athletic threat. But I don't know if they would do it in the middle of the season, just because I don't know if they would think that that would give them a better chance than Heineke this season.
Right, and that's fair. I mean, like you mentioned, and made me think about it. I think trading for a quarterback midseason is probably the hardest thing that you could do as a football team.
Mm-hmm.
But going to your point about them wanting a whole bunch, if you're looking at going towards Caleb Williams here, Justin Fields is still on his rookie contract. I'm looking at it right now. I mean, he has a $2.7 million signing bonus that gets paid out this year. His base salary is 1.2. His cap hits less than 5 for the season. I mean, it's not a whole lot for what you really think about it. And if they are looking at making that next direction, if you can see the writing on the wall, like if fans can see it, the NFL GMs are seeing that, hey, they don't have much, they don't have
Leverage.
much leverage. They don't have the selling to say, hey, we have the guy you want, because they're like, well, you're gonna go get somebody else. So I don't need to help you. You're helping me, so I'm gonna take that advantage in my book. Again, I still don't know if trading for a quarterback, like you said, is beneficial, but I think if I was the Falcons and I'm going after a quarterback, I don't think Tannehill's benefiting enough. Murray, I think, I don't think he's helping. The injuries, I think, are worse there than they are with Justin Fields. Kirk Cousins isn't bad, but I think if the Vikings are going to trade Cousins, they're going to ask for a lot, and he's probably going to the Jets, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair.
But while you decided to bring up Murray, and I talked about him, that leads us into my next thing. Isn't necessarily the Cardinals themselves, or like trading for a position, but looking at getting rid of Zach Ertz. And I think the reason that you look at getting rid of Zach Ertz is he's a veteran guy. They've already shipped out a lot of their veterans. They've already started that rebuild. They're going younger. They've done it throughout the whole offense. He's the only old veteran guy that's really left on there. And I feel like Ertz is, I don't want to say hot commodity, but he's a warm commodity for some teams. Like we mentioned earlier, I think Miami could benefit from him. Dallas, like you mentioned, could benefit him from, and honestly, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh does have Pat Fairmouth, but that guy has had a lot of injuries. He's, it's been a struggle for him this season. That I think Ertz isn't terribly expensive. That he might be able to not only help them through the season, but also might be a great help for getting Fairmouth to where you want him to be next season and 2 years down the road. So I don't necessarily say that it's the Cardinals need anything, but I think they have a tight end that teams would like, that they may be able to benefit for future use.
Yeah, and if it's a
I got
missing,
one more.
Go
I
ahead.
got one more wild card team in there. I think you could throw in there also the Bills. I think the Bills want to be able to use the tight end position a little bit more. I just don't think they totally believe in Dawson Knox's downfield ability. And who's their other tight end they have? It's a younger guy.
They just drafted
Dalton Kincaid out of Utah.
Dalton Kincaid.
But the problem with both of them is they both have been injured. Dalton Kincaid had a concussion, so that's why he didn't play this week. But Kincaid hasn't really been a tight end. He's been more like receiver 3 or receiver 4.
Right. Yeah.
They bring
he's
in
not
a
like
2-receiver package, but he's like more of a receiver.
Right, exactly.
He's big, but he's not a blocking tight end, so he's just a big body, but he has a little bit more mobility than a normal tight end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with Ertz, and I kind of alluded this earlier when we were talking about the Dolphins. I think it's like, what's the value that you can get out of them? At that point, like the Cardinals are just like, you know what, like it's not we'll take anything, but it's like, we just want something out of this because he's been here for I think 5 or 6 years now. I think maybe a little longer potentially. But yeah, if you can get like a 3rd round pick out of him, like that'd be great, and maybe that 3rd round pick, maybe makes a difference. Maybe can be a starter in 2 years for that Cardinals team. But I think that like Pittsburgh could definitely use some help, and I think like bringing up the Bills could be another good team as well.
So because you mentioned Zach Ertz, he's only been there. This is only his 3rd season.
Really,
he came over in 21. Came over there in 21 after being with Philly. Came over, and next year is his last year on his contract. So, and they owe him 8.7 this year and $8 million next year, and I think that's a lot for what they're looking at. So I think that's another reason to look at trading him if I'm the Cardinals, is you have money invested in a veteran tight end that's really not doing anything for you right this second.
Yeah. So the last one that I'm going to bring up is the Minnesota Vikings. And what are they trading for? No, it's not what they're trading for. It's what they're trying to get. Trading away? I don't know. I don't remember what I just said.
No, you said it right the second time. What they're trying to get, yeah.
Yeah, what they're trying to get. They're just trying to get trade assets. Get as much stuff as they possibly can. Gain anything for the future. They need to set up the future, because what is the future right now in the NFC North? Packers still might be somewhat relevant, but this is the Lions division. And I've said it probably every single podcast since the beginning of the season. 11-0 in one possession games last year, and so far this year they are 2-4. So, last year it's starting to show that it was pretty much a fluke. Build around Justin Jefferson, unless if he requests a trade, that'd be tough. Jordan Addison is starting to become a very good wide receiver. I wouldn't say rising like Justin Jefferson did, but when Justin Jefferson got there, I believe I think Stephon just left. But another rising wide receiver that could just be really good. Trade away Kirk Cousins. You could maybe get a second round pick out of someone that really needs them if they want to compete, whoever that may be. You probably can't trade anyone on that defense because probably no one wants anyone on that defense. But whatever you can get, just try your best.
Daniil Hunter.
Maybe, yeah, probably.
That'd be probably the only one. Yeah.
Maybe Harrison Smith.
Yeah, maybe. I think he's 34, so maybe.
Yeah. Maybe Harrison Smith to the Eagles or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what do you guys think about the Vikings?
Yeah, I mean it's a smart approach because obviously they're not really going anywhere this year. Like, even if somehow they get to the wild card spot, I mean, they're gonna get destroyed in the first round. I mean, that's even assuming they can even get in that wild card spot to begin with. Which I mean, we always talk about how teams don't really tank in the NFL, and I don't really think they do either. But I feel like if there's any team that should tank, that has talent to not tank, it's the Vikings. They're one of those teams that kind of has to like slightly purposely tank, because they could realistically bring JJ back in 4 weeks and try to make a little push. They could keep Kirk Cousins the whole season until his contract runs out. Don't get anything for him. But that's just not really a smart approach because that it's not going to set you up well for the future. It's just going to keep you in mediocrity. So yeah, I mean, I agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's spot on. Kind of just what I mentioned about potentially Cousins going somewhere, and we've mentioned it already. I think you're just like PT said, you're not tanking, but you're trying to set yourself up for next year, like you mentioned right there. I mean, there's talent there. It's just a matter of like kind of washing the season and just kind of seeing what you can get better for next year. So I think you're spot on.
Yeah, because if they were truly tanking, they would have purposely lost to the Bears, and unfortunately, that's not what they did. So now we'll move on to our upsets, double downs, and picks. So I'll start off with Zeke's. Since he's in the top of the leaderboard, his upset of the week is the Lions over the Rams. The Ravens. And we're all going with the Lions here. I mean, they've looked real good, even though this is an upset. So we're technically all picking the upset here. I'm not too impressed with how the Ravens have looked. They are 4-2, but they're also a very wishy-washy 4-2 team. And the Lions, this is kind of like their first true test since the Chiefs. So we'll see if they can get it done.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really envision the Ravens winning this game. But maybe they could pull it off. I mean, I still feel like even if it was like a very low line, I think like the Lions should still be the favorite. But we'll see what happens.
I think the only reason the Ravens have favoritism going towards them is just at home. I think it's the only reason, and I think being at home plays dividends no matter college, pro, doesn't matter. I mean, you get that little edge just being at your own host.
Yeah. So Sean, your upset of the week?
My upset is going to be the Colts over the Cleveland Browns. So I think the Colts look good. I guess I am, always questionable about Anthony Richardson. And just, all the injuries. I honestly don't think he's even playing this week. I'm not sure. But I don't. The Browns seem to be all over the place. I think the Colts been a little bit more consistent. I don't know. I like Colts this week.
Yeah, you're the only one going with the Colts, so it's gonna be kind of a tough one. I went with the Browns just because they're coming off that high of beating the 49ers, but sometimes you get that high from beating someone and then you just overlook your opponent that next week. So I think that picking the Colts as an upset here isn't a bad thing, but I'm still taking the Browns.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either way. I just can't trust Gardner, especially after last week. 3 interceptions, 1 fumble. Yeah, just can't really trust him quite yet as a starter.
Yeah, and then Zeke also went with the Browns there. So PT, you're upset?
Yeah, I feel like mine doesn't really feel like an upset because these teams are pretty evenly matched, but I went with the Dolphins over the Eagles. Um, like I said before, like I've been saying all season before, just feel like the Eagles just are just a step or two behind. And we saw that when they took their first loss on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon. And so, yeah, I just think that this Dolphins offense, after playing, I believe it was Carolina last week and kind of getting off to a slower start, I think this is the kind of game where they're going to get off to a great start because they're going to play up to the level of competition, and they're going to want to stay some dominance. So, yeah, I got the Dolphins.
Yeah,
You know,
this is
Sam,
also.
I'm gonna jump in real quick because you're gonna have to make a change.
All right.
Dolphins over the Eagles. Give me my homer pick. I'm taking it and I'm running with it.
I
I was
convinced you?
questionable. Now I was questionable because the last time the Dolphins played a comparable opponent, they got throttled by the Bills. But I think they're ready to redeem themselves. They're not ready to do it again. I didn't want to do the homer pick, but this conversation for the last 40 minutes has me all in on the Dolphins. I'm not going to root against my team. I was going to do it because if they won, I didn't care. They won, but if they lost, then I at least was right here. But no, Dolphins, put me down, lock it in. We're
Okay,
winning.
so that was going to be our first split, but now it's
No.
not
You know
anymore.
what? You know what? Zeke and the Eagles getting throttled. 38-17. Get out of here.
Okay. All right.
I like that. I like that prediction.
Yeah.
Tyreek, 200 yards, first player over 1,000 yards this season. We're only 7 weeks in.
Yeah, that would do it.
Dang. Yeah, and this is also what I like to call a conflict of interest. I think it's our third or fourth one so far this year. So Peyton's going with the Dolphins on the upset, and Zeke going with the Eagles for his double down as per usual. For my upset, I am doing the Bears over the Raiders, and I am the only one that is doing that. I just, Jimmy Garoppolo is Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, what do you know? Who would have thought, He is questionable for this week after missing 2 weeks ago and playing this last week, but got injured against the Patriots. I think the Bears, they played really well 2 weeks ago against the Commanders, and I think they still played fairly well against the Vikings, even though it's not that good of a Vikings team. Still only lost by like one possession, but I don't have much faith in the Raiders in this game, even though the Raiders are probably the superior team.
This tells you how much I know about this. Who is the Raiders' backup quarterback?
So 2 weeks ago, the guy that played the entire game was Aiden O'Connell, a rookie. Last week when Jimmy went down, it was Brian Hoyer. So we have 2 guys. So who will it be? I don't know.
I think I'd place my money on Hoyer just because he's the veteran.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hate the Chicago Bears. Give me the Raiders.
Honestly, I didn't even know Jimmy June was hurt. Otherwise, I would have stayed away from this game with a 10-foot pole. But I'm down for the Raiders. The Bears suck. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So we already went with Zeke's double down. So Sean, who's your double down?
My double down is the Los Angeles Rams over the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That was very emphatic for a pick that we all picked the same thing.
you know what? We're all just geniuses, but one person's a little bit more confident than the rest.
That's a very good way to put it. I just don't have a lot of faith in the Steelers here. They're 3-3, but they really, really shouldn't be. And I do like how the Rams have looked this season, especially with Cooper Kupp being back. I really like what they're doing.
Dude, honestly, if we go back to the beginning of the year when we did a podcast about the expectations for the season, not a single one of us really thought the Rams were going to do much. Like, I think
Yeah.
PT was the only one, like, I don't
Skeptical.
think PT was like, I don't think they're throwing the season away, but I think they're just trying to maintain it. But, like, I feel like in their locker room, they feel like they got a shot to make a run at the playoffs. And they play like they got some swagger in them. And
yeah.
that two-headed beast of the receiving core that's popping out with Cooper Kupp. I don't know how to say the other dude's name, but
Puka. We'll just call him Puka.
Puka the Buka. That dude literally looked like Cooper Kupp the first 5-6 weeks, whatever it was. Granted, last week he didn't do much because Cooper Kupp came back. But if they get Puka going just the same that he was or incorporated, that's gonna be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention Tutu Atwell has been a good receiver for them, another good young receiver, and Tyler Higbee's back. So, yeah, I got the Rams. No reason not to take them here.
I think the only thing that's plaguing the Rams is the running back position right now. They're down to their third string running back on the season. That's the only thing that I think is, maybe a question mark. But that guy, I don't know what his name is anymore, but he's getting picked up on my fantasy team tomorrow, so I'm all in.
Couldn't even tell you him up first.
This is in a different league.
PT, you're double down?
Yeah, mine's going to be pretty simple. Bills over Patriots. Do I need to say much about it? I don't think so.
Yeah, I concur. Bills, even though they've been wishy-washy, but Sean had the Bills over the Giants last week, and how'd that go for you, Sean? Were you a little nervous about the 2 points?
I was a little nervous, but the Bills are the better Bill in this matchup, so I'm taking the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I don't think I could top that, so I'm not even going to try. Yeah, we're all going with the Bills there. For my double down, I'm going with the Chiefs over the Chargers. I have zero faith in Brandon Staley anymore. They are 2-3 at the moment, and the Chiefs, they've had a couple kind of closer games the last few weeks, but I still think that they're going to be the better team. They're the best team in the division. They win this game, they're going to pull away from that division by a long shot, like they have been for the last few years. The only person disagreeing here is Mr. Zeke. He's going with the Chargers. I don't know if it's just a little bit of hatred for the Super Bowl last year, but I'm riding with the Chiefs.
I'm the middleman here. I was borderline Chargers, and that's just because this matchup is close every single time. But I think with how Herbert looked, was it yesterday? Man, I don't even know my days of the week anymore.
Yesterday.
How Herbert looked yesterday, still playing with that, broken middle finger. I think he's still a little hesitant when he comes to run because he doesn't know how to quite fall yet. But I think that and being in Kansas City, I just couldn't put enough trust in the Chargers. But if the Chargers do win, it would not shock me one bit.
Yeah, I think it'll be decently close because, like you said, Sean, they usually are. But I can't go against Pat Mahomes at home.
So that wraps up our upsets and double downs. We'll just go into our last of the picks. So for the Thursday night football game, we have the Jaguars and Saints. Three of us going with one team, and that's Zeke, Sean, and I going with the Jaguars. Wait, PT, do I see that correct? You're going with the Saints for the second week in a row?
You do. I think that with Trevor Lawrence possibly being out with that sprained knee, I think that's the last thing the Jaguars can afford right now. Give me the Saints -3.
Yeah. You guys all got the knowledge that I know. I don't. I didn't even know that Trevor Lawrence was, potentially hurt. So, but if he's playing, the Jags are hitting stride with their offense when they need to be. So I'm being a better Falcons fan than you and rooting against your divisional opponent and going Jaguars.
So, and here's the thing: is I'm going with the Jaguars because ETN's hitting his stride too. It's not just that offense; it's ETN's hitting. I think that's 3 straight games of 100 yards or dang near close to it for ETN.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm going with the Jags here, and I think that Saints' run defense has been fairly good so far this season, but yeah, I'm taking the Jags and ETN whether Trevor plays or not. The next game, at noon o'clock.
Noon o'clock?
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep, it's a thing now.
The big noon kickoff game of the week.
Right. We got the Commanders and Giants because I know everyone's going to be tuned into that. We're all going with the Commanders here, and Zeke's going with the Giants. I mean, this game was real close. Was it this game? No, I think this is the first time they played. Never mind. It was the Giants and the Cardinals when they played week 2. So I thought the Giants came back and beat them, but I think this is their first matchup of the season now.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Commanders, looked really good against Atlanta. Of course, Atlanta's Atlanta. Obviously, the Chicago loss looked really bad. But I think for the most part, this team is pretty average. And average in a good way, I'm saying, not average in a bad way. When you play the Giants, I think if you play at an average level and you don't play down to your competition like the Buffalo Bills did last week, or this week rather, then I think you can win by multiple touchdowns. So give me the Commanders by 18.
Without a doubt. I think the Commanders are your definition of an NFL team. They aren't the best, they aren't the worst, but they will compete with every single team. They are like, if you want to talk about pro football and what the definition of pro football is, then you just look at the Commanders. They are a bunch of pro athletes that'll compete with anybody. They might not win every game, but they're going to show up. Except against the Bears. That's a different story.
I was gonna say they can compete against everyone except for the team that's gonna have the number 1 pick.
Or the Buffalo Bills.
Or the Buffalo Bills. True.
So they show up 50% of the time. That's why they're 500.
The next noon o'clock kickoff game is the Falcons and Buccaneers. Another one of us disagreeing here, and guess what? We're all agreeing. We're going with the Bucks, but Zeke's going with the Falcons. He's trusting the Falcons, and PT, you're not going with them.
No, not this week, man. I think Arthur Smith is going to be stubborn, and he's going to try to start Ritter again against this stout defense. I think they're going to clog the whole zip in the run game again. I think Ritter's going to make a couple bad throws that are going to cost us a game. Give me Bucks by 10.
Dang. All I'm going to say is if the Buccaneers come out at home in their creamsicle jerseys, any week they do that, I'm taking the Bucks. They didn't win last week, but I'm still taking them. Wait, I don't think I took them last week. I didn't know they were wearing the creamsicle ones. So, but those are the best.
But you were right.
But those are the best jerseys. I love those things.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bucks here. I think that Baker is probably their guy. And that defense is looking good. Only gave up 20 points to the Lions. On a good Lions team, even though they were hurt a little bit. But I think that the Buccaneers are going to take care of business against the Falcons.
Somebody give Baker a flag and let him plant it in the middle.
Maybe if this was in Atlanta. But
and then tell Atlanta that they're a basketball state.
Right.
The Cardinals and Seahawks, we all agree here, Seahawks. The Cardinals are probably the worst team in the NFL, if that makes any sense. They make some games somewhat competitive, more than they probably should if they're tanking. But I like Kenneth Walker, and the Seahawks almost beat the Bengals last week, so I'm going with the Seahawks.
I like
yeah,
it.
I think. Go ahead.
No, I just said I like it. I like Seahawks.
Yeah. I mean, I think Seahawks are kind of an odd team for me, and I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about them. I think it's gonna be a different segment for a different day, but they're one of those teams where I think when they're really clicking, they can really look really good. But when they're not clicking, it doesn't really look good at all. But I think, like you said, Sam, and like we've seen past few weeks, the Cardinals know how to keep it close. They're a well coached team, but I think the Seahawks are just a little bit more talented. So give me the Seahawks by 6.
All right. And then a 3:25 kickoff, we got the Green Bay Packers and the Denver Broncos. We're all agreeing with the Packers here. They're coming off of a bye week. Unfortunately, this isn't a team that's worthy of having a bye week before. But, it could be definitely a trap game. If the Packers want to stay relevant, they're going to have to win this game. And the Broncos having a little bit longer of a week, playing last Thursday. But I don't believe in Sean Payton. He's got a lot of coaching rust that he has to dust off. I'm taking the Packers.
Yeah,
I like
I'm
the
going to take the Packers as well. I think that, like you said, just nothing really can ever go right with the Broncos, it seems like, this season. And I think the Packers are going to want to come off that bye week really prepared for the Broncos, extra prepared to make sure to get this win, and try to get back on 500. So I got the Packers winning confidently by 17.
I cannot put any faith in the Denver Broncos at all. So it's like whoever's playing the Panthers, I'm going against whoever's playing them.
Yeah. All right, then that leaves the Monday Night Football game, the last one. We all agree here, 49ers and Vikings. And did we all go with the Vikings here? Oh, no. We're going with 49ers.
It's going to be crazy.
Man, you almost got me with that one. I thought I made a bad pick.
Yeah, 49ers got their first loss last week. But, I mean, that's not stopping me. Brock Purdy had his first bad game, but here's the thing. There's been 2 games that the Cleveland Browns have won that has been, the most consistent, and that is at home in the rain. They beat the 49ers and they beat the Bengals at home in the rain. Maybe it's just a fluke. Good thing that Minnesota is a dome, so I think Brock Purdy's going to have another great game, whether or not Debo does play. I still think I trust Brandon Ayuk. Christian McCaffrey might be injured, but I think he'll be okay too.
Speaking of CMC, if you want a overreaction that's not an overreaction about them, they need to whittle down his usage just a little bit. Otherwise, he's going to be CMC of Carolina, and he's going to be broken real quick.
Hey, but he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year, and then I'm going to look like a genius. So.
And then he's going to win Comeback Player of the Year next year because he's broke.
Yeah. So you guys, yeah.
Yeah, no, I got the 49ers. I think they're going to be really upset they lost last week. I actually have them winning by 25 here. I'm going to call it 28-3 final score.
Jeez.
Man, I'm surprised you even wanted to mention 28-3.
It crossed my mind.
Oh. Well, with that, this is going to be the shortest week, I think, of the NFL season in terms of games per the week. So, PT, I think it was week 4, where you went 15-1. Is anyone going to go 13-0 this week?
We'll have to see, but I would say the odds are against it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll know by noon or after the noon games on Sunday. I mean, someone will already be wrong after the Thursday night game, so we'll see that.
Yeah.
All I know is that when this happens next week, Either we all jumped Zeke by multiple points, or Zeke got a commanding lead on all of us.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, very true.
that's typically kind of how it goes. It's like I look at that and I'm like, dang, like this is going to be either really good for all of us or really bad.
Right. It's kind of a make or break kind of week mid season.
Yep. But is there anything you guys need to add? No. Go Fins.
Go Dolphins.
Go
Tyreek,
Birds.
man, get out of here.
Go. But once again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP. Follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. I've been Sam Holcroft.
This Sean Rank.
I'm Payton Thompson.
Thanks for listening.
You're welcome.